Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesa Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Vangshidhari, you think there's a possibility that our car might get blocked in? Our car might get blocked in? Could you put it where it won't get blocked in before it gets blocked in? I can see that you have many guests planned. That nice lady back there working on refreshments afterwards. So the topic that I'd like to speak about is Brahma Vimohan Lila, and I'm sure you're familiar with Brahma Vimohan Lila. It's found in Canto 10, Chapter 13, and then the prayers are in Chapter 14. This is a stage of Krishna's life where he's not yet turned 5, because it involves Krishna's herding calves, and when he turns 5, he starts herding the cows. So he's with the calves. And the painting, very beautiful painting, is showing Lord Brahma on his knees with his hands folded before Krishna, who's standing underneath a flowering tree with his left hand extended, very specific, and his left hand, because Krishna has just gotten up in the middle of having his lunch with the cowherd boys, and he's holding still in his hand a lump of yogurt with some rice and fruit in his left hand, because he eats with his right hand. And with unblinking eyes, Krishna is just looking. At the end of this section of Brahma's prayers, he doesn't even respond. He just acknowledges Brahma's prayers, and Brahma circumambulates him and departs. That's the scene when he's offering his prayers, and Brahma is the head of one of the 4 disciplic successions, the Brahma Sampradaya, and we find ourselves receiving knowledge in that disciplic succession from Lord Brahma, and so these prayers are very special to us. Canto 10, Chapter 14. And just for a quick summary of Chapter 13, the beginning section of the chapter is Krishna leaving Nandagram, and there's a whole description of the procedure before he leaves the palace. His rising early and bathing, and with Nanda Maharaj bathing with him, and the mother Jasoda dressing him and decorating him, and naturally, as a mother is attached to her son, she's very attached, but she's transcendentally attached. She's Mother Jasoda attached. And there's many scenes of following Krishna as step by step, and adjusting his garland, and making sure that Balaram looks after him, and making sure he has enough samosas in his lunch bag, and, doing things, and each time Krishna says, "I have to go now, mother." And finally, he departs into the forest with the calves and his cowherd boyfriends. And the beginning part, long section, describing what the cowherd boys do together. And basically, it's not herding calves, it's playing. And because the calves are attached to Krishna, they just follow Krishna. So it really doesn't have to herd the calves, they just follow. And they play this way, that way. There's a long description of their playful activity. So the reader is now in the mood of playfulness of Krishna during this age. 4-year-old boys, what are they going to do? And then comes the scene where the Agassura Demon appears in the path. The boys have been down this path many, many times. They've never seen this big thing before, and they start wondering, what is it? Is it this? Is it that? Is it the other thing? But they're in a playful mood, and they're exploring, and so they start to smell this bad, fishy smell. And then they realize it's not anything other than it's a giant serpent. But anyway, Krishna has always protected us. Let's go and explore inside. So as you see, off they go. And as they go, the calves with their tails raised follow right behind the cowherd boys as they enter. And Agassura doesn't close his mouth yet because he wants to swallow Krishna. Though Krishna is concerned that the cowherd boys might have difficulty surviving, not seeing him, because that's part of the nature of their attachment. As Mother Jasoda is attached, there's descriptions that sometimes when they're passing through the forest and there's a tree between the boys, one boy and Krishna, for the time it takes to pass the tree, they nearly die because they're not seeing Krishna. He's their life. So Krishna enters the Agassura mouth, and he quickly closes his mouth. But Krishna knows what to do. Krishna expanded himself as one of his mystic potencies is to become bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So the serpent's body started expanding and expanding and expanding, but he couldn't match Krishna's expansion. So he suffocated. And when he suffocated, the soul that was within the demon's body left the upper part of his head, just like humans have a Brahmarandra at the top of their head. So snakes also have a soft spot, and the soul went through that soft spot. The jaws of the serpent opened, the cowherd boys left, Krishna left, and the soul hovered like a bright light in the sky, and then entered into Krishna's body. Sayuja Mukti. Krishna liberated him. And the cowherd boys looked at Krishna, wow, that was really great. You're so wonderful. Let's go have lunch. And that's what happens. Around 11 o'clock each day, a demon will come, because otherwise the boys would just continue playing and playing and playing and playing. So there's an interruption to their play by a demon coming daily around 11 o'clock. And at 12 o'clock it's time for lunch. So they went to have lunch, and as they were having lunch, they sat in a circle with Krishna at the center. And although the rasa is different, this is the rasa of friendship. Like the rasa dance, Krishna expanded himself into so many Krishnas. So much so that each of the gopis felt, and all they could see was that it was just Krishna with them, dancing So each of the cowherd boys also saw, Krishna is so attached to me, he's just looking at me. And each one was thinking like that because Krishna has mystic powers. He has his power of Yogamaya to completely fulfill and satisfy the desires of each of his devotees according to their relationship with him. Like Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Yayata mam prapadyante tang sataiva pajamyaham. As persons have regard for him, he reciprocates perfectly. And these cowherd boys, they're in that rasa of friendship, and they're completely attached to Krishna. So he's reciprocating with their attachment for him. And in the painting, we see there's Lord Brahma looking at this amazing scene. Here's this, he saw the Agassura Demon being killed. He saw the soul rise in the sky and enter into Krishna's body. And now he sees that same Krishna who just killed this giant serpent sitting having lunch with his friends. So he starts to wonder. I mean, it is wonderful, but he starts specifically to wonder, what's the extent of the mercy, of the potency of Krishna? Because, please consider, Brahma has immense potency to create a universe. I mean, think of creating something. Thinking of creating something like an ant or a mosquito. Prabhupada speaks like this. Or a spider web. I mean, they didn't go to spider web school. They didn't go to mosquito school to learn how to drink blood and fly this way, that way, in any direction. But they've been in to make one, and make one that can reproduce itself. It's Brahma has enormous capacity for creation and for knowledge. A very, very powerful person. The leading person in the whole universe. So he starts to wonder, what about this little boy? And the event, we discussed this a little bit yesterday, it's the influence of Yogamaya. Yogamaya means a potency, an internal potency by which one forgets one's real identity and becomes covered by that Yogamaya potency and adopts an identity that matches Krishna's pastimes. So this powerful Lord Brahma wants to see what's the extent of Krishna's power. So he matches his power against Krishna's power. What's Krishna going to do? So what did he do? He kidnapped the calves, and then he kidnapped the cowherd boys to wait and see what Krishna was going to do. So as the cowherd boys were sitting having their lunch, the calves were grazing, looking for greener grass. They started going this way, that way. And then the boys realized, uh-oh, the calves have started to stray. So Krishna said, don't worry, you just continue having lunch, and I'll go fetch the calves. So they continued having lunch. Krishna went up to get the calves, but the calves had already been taken by Brahma and put into a cave. And when the Krishna was searching for the calves, Brahma came and kidnapped the boys and put the boys in a cave. And there's a painting showing the calves and the boys in a cave. And then there's Brahma flying on his swan carrier going back to the scene of the crime. Because it's known that sometimes criminals do that. So he wanted to see what's Krishna going to do. And when he got to the place where the boys were having lunch, He expected to find Krishna crying or perplexed or something. But much to his amazement, he saw there was Krishna with all those cowherd boys and all the calves having lunch. He was very astonished. There's a nice Sanskrit word. It's one of the 7 secondary rasas, astonishment. So he went back and looked in the cave, and there they were in the cave. Went back to where they were having lunch, and there they were having lunch. You see him in the sky there. He's looking at the scene. And while he's in that amazement, because remember his desire was to see what is the limit of Krishna's opulences. Krishna reciprocated. Yayatam prapadyante. As he had that, he's a devotee. Brahma's a great devotee. He's very powerful and very intelligent, and he's using it in Krishna's service. So Krishna displayed mystic powers without limit. Each one of the cowherd boys was still there having lunch, and each one of those cowherd boys manifested a form of Narayana. And each of the forms of, and there's a lot of cowherd boys, each of the forms of Narayana was surrounded by the personified Vedas who were singing his glories. So it was like a personified Vedas concert. But it wasn't just the personified Vedas. All these Vishnu Murtis were surrounded by the unlimited opulences of the unlimited. And it lists some of them. The mystic powers headed by Anima Siddhi, by mystic potencies headed by Ajja, by the 24 elements for the creation of the material world headed by Mahatattva, all personified. This is important. They weren't just Shaktis kind of zooming around somewhere. They were persons. Then Lord Brahma saw that Kala, the form of time, not just time, but the form of time. What does the form of time look like? Swabhava, Samskara, Kama, Karma, and the gunas. What do the gunas look like? And their own independence, being completely subordinate to the potency of the Lord, had all taken forms. Notice that's in a different color. Had all taken forms and were also worshipping those Vishnu Murtis. Now there are several places. I'm going to spend a little bit of time. This is one of the main things I want to discuss this evening. There's a Brahman conception, a Paramatma conception, and a Bhagavan conception of the absolute truth. The Bhagavatam confirms. Vedanta tattata vedas tattvam yadjnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavan iti shabdyate. The Bhagavatam is disclosing all three features of the absolute truth. And the complete feature of the absolute truth is Bhagavan. Van means one who possesses, and Bhaga means opulences. He possesses all opulences in full. And all opulences in full means it's full. There isn't something less than fullness within him. And the variegatedness of that fullness is without limit. And each of those variegated opulences have personal forms. It's quite amazing. And the word that's used in the text, this particular verse, atarkya, nija, mahimani. Tarkya means logic. Tarka. Atarkya means it's inconceivable, beyond logic. Nija Mahimani. And so his own Nija Mahimani, inconceivable opulences, they're under his full control. This teaching that's in the Bhagavatam, I said I want to spend a little time on this. There's a nice verse from Shvetashvatara Upanishad, Natashikaryam karanam chavidyate, natat samaschabhyadi kashya drishyate, and I put in big letters, Para Shakti. Para means transcendental, and Shakti, of course, is potency. Parashya Shaktir Vividaiva Shruyate Swabhaviki Jnana Balakriyacha. So these are his, such as Jnana Bala and Kriya Shakti. These are potencies, principal potencies through which he acts. They're mentioned in that list that we saw from the Bhagavatam verse, chapter 13 of Canto 10. The gist of this verse is, the Lord has nothing to do personally, that's the first half, for everything is done through his different potencies. So all those potencies that Brahma saw are potencies of the internal, of spiritual realm. They have their counterpart in this material realm. The material counterpart is resting upon the spiritual origin. I'll say it again. Just that there's a saying. I've learned this from visiting China. They have a same saying. I was surprised when I asked. As above, so below. So what exists here has its spiritual counterpart in the spiritual realm. But that spiritual, this is resting on that. And that's the reality, and this is the reflection of the reality. Like chapter 15, Bhagavad Gita. The tree where the branches are growing down and the roots are growing up. No such tree. It's just a reflection of a tree that's on a lake or a pond or body of water, and the reflection is where the branches are growing down and the roots are growing up. Just a reflection. There's no such tree. It's just a reflection. But it looks like a tree. It looks like a tree because there's a tree on the other side of the bank of the lake or the river or the pond. So that's the reality, and this is the reflection. So Brahma is getting to see the reality, not just the reflection, because he's been dealing with the reflection in his creation of this universe. And he put the whole thing together. He knows how all the puzzle pieces, he's a chief engineer. Electrical engineer, civil engineer, mechanical engineer, and he's the dean of all those engineerings. And he built the universe. But that's the reflection. Now he's seeing the original. And that through the potencies of the original, everything happens in the spiritual realm and its reflection here in the material realm. So when he sees all this, he's overwhelmed. He faints. He stands before Krishna when he comes to external consciousness and offers beautiful prayers. And that's what the section is. Chapter 14 is his prayers. We spent a little bit of time covering the first three of his prayers. I'm going to mention again number 3 because it's an important one. Jnane prayasa udapasya. Udapasya means discard, throw away. Throwing away the prayasa, or the endeavor for understanding things through our jnana capacity, through speculative capacity, through knowledge, build and build and build and build so you can eventually understand higher things. He understands so many things, but his prayer is, I let go of that prayasa to understand you through my knowledge capacity, and instead, namanta eva. Namanta eva. I just offer my obeisances to you. And he can be understood, sanmukaritam bhavadiya vartam, hearing and dedicating his life to the messages, the descriptions of him from the Lord himself, as he's just disclosed to Brahma, and those who have heard directly or had knowledge of him revealed to him. And then the basis of that knowledge of Krishna being revealed is through bhakti. That's what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Bhaktyamam abhijanati. He's understood through bhakti. And the concluding part is, by having that dedication to messages about him, from him and from his devotees, then Krishna reveals himself. And not only reveals himself, he becomes conquered. He who is ajita becomes jita. He loves his devotees so much, he's controlled by his devotees. I'll go quickly, because I want to cover another section. We're going to have some sound, right? I meant to do a sound check coming up quickly. Here's a painting. Here's a painting of Lord Chaitanya, who's dressed in sannyas attire, and he's embracing the governor then of Madras, now Chennai, which was part of, at that time at least, it was part of the kingdom of the king of Orissa. His kingdom extended that far down, and a little far up also into Bengal, the big kingdom. And when Lord Chaitanya was on his travels in South India, on the bank of River Kaveri, he met with Ramananda Roy and had some nice discussions. You see his ministers in the background, just amazed, like, who is our governor embracing this sannyasi? Why is this sannyasi embracing our governor? Because they had an intimate relationship with one another. So in their discussions, Ramananda Roy was being asked by Lord Chaitanya, I've heard that you're very learned. Could you tell me what is the goal of life and how to achieve it? That was the start of their conversation. And Ramananda Roy suggested a number of very important and wonderful verses from the scripture stating different things. Following Varnashram and dedicating those duties of Varnashram to the Supreme. Daivi Varnashram. Krishna said, or Lord Chaitanya said, very good, but go further. Go further, go further. A number of verses. And finally settled on this one verse. Yes, this is the goal of life. What's the goal? To become completely situated, completely faithful and absorbed in topics of transcendence, topics of Krishna, heard from Krishna or from the devotees of Krishna, the realized souls. Hear from them. And in this way, one becomes purified, and in that purified state, one feels very strong attraction, affection, and attachment for the Supreme. And the Supreme reciprocates. That's the goal of life and the means to achieve it. Later in this chapter, we'll hear Brahma speaking about the specific nature of Krishna in Vrindavan. That feature of Krishna in Vrindavan is superlative. And Brahma, he's an outsider. He's visiting Vrindavan. He's seeing the cowherd boys together with Krishna all day long, and the calves for that matter, and how fortunate they are. And the nature of Krishna in Vrindavan is not only the calves and cowherd boys, but even those who are inimical to Krishna. You will hear. We're going to hear a recording as part of the sound little section of this. He says to Krishna in one of his prayers, "You've already arranged to give yourself to Putana and her family members." And her family members means Bakasura and Agassura. Agassura, the big serpent, was the brother of Putana. But when Putana was killed by Krishna, what did he do? He not only gave her liberation, but specifically the Bhagavatam says, and the Padma Purana says, that she, Putana, received the position of mother in the spiritual world. She became one of Mother Yasoda's assistants or nurses in Goloka Vrindavan. For what? She disguised herself as a devotee. She acted as if she was a mother. Her intention was to poison Krishna, but she acted as if she was a mother. So Krishna gave her not only liberation, like he did with Agassura, he gave her an eternal position. So if you reciprocated with Putana in this way, how are you going to reciprocate with those devotees who have completely dedicated everything to you? Their lives, their hearts, their property, their everything, completely dedicated. How are you going to reciprocate with them? He's marveling at the super excellent, fortunate position of the residents of Vrindavan. So this is just a nice painting that shows Krishna bifurcating the beak of Bakasura after he allowed himself to get into the beak of Bakasura, but the Bakasura couldn't swallow him. Then he escaped and then bifurcated and gave him liberation. You see the cowherd boys with their sticks ready to whack Bakasura in case Krishna has a problem. And here's Agassura, another of the brothers of Putana. And up top, the cowherd, on the right side there, the cowherd boys are trampling on the heads of Agassura after they get freed from his grasp. That's just a little introduction to his prayers in the beginning part. There's another nice section that's recorded, and I think you'll like it. I like it. I hope you like it. It's a narration of with images of Brahma's prayers. We should be hearing, but we're not hearing. There should be sound. He's going to adjust the sound so that we can hear it.
Krishna display. He prays to Krishna, "O Lord, I previously was unable to either understand or see you due to the coverings of your own Maya, your illusion energy."
Let's try it again.
Lord Brahma attempts to express the ramifications of the opulence that he has seen Krishna display. He prays to Krishna, "O Lord, I previously was unable to either understand or see you due to the coverings of your own Maya, your illusory energy. But you are the controller of that Maya, and that was proved by Mother Yashoda's seeing the universe within your abdomen. Now, at At the present, that universe is externally manifest as your inconceivable energy, and it is therefore all that I perceive. Today, by your manifesting all the cows, cowherd boys, and Vishnu forms who are being worshipped by all living entities, you've demonstrated that the entire creation is your inconceivable potency. And now I'm seeing before me the original form of the unlimited, supreme, absolute truth. To the ignorant, you seem to be of this material world, although it is you who appears as Brahma, the creator, who appears as Vishnu, the maintainer, and as Shiva, the destroyer. To demonstrate that you, the absolute truth, is an unlimited transcendental person, you descend within the universe as avatars, and you take birth among the demigods, sages, humans, animals, and the aquatics. As an avatar, you then, by your spiritual potency, perform your innumerable, inconceivable, mysterious pastimes. Due to you, this entire universe, which, like a dream, is by nature unreal, nevertheless appears real. And thus, it covers one's consciousness and assails one with repeated miseries. This universe appears real because it is manifested by the potency of illusion emanating from you, whose unlimited transcendental forms are full of eternal happiness and knowledge. You are the one Supreme Soul, the primeval Supreme Personality, the Absolute Truth, self-manifesting, endless and beginningless. You are eternal and infallible, perfect and complete, without any rival, and free from all material designations. Your happiness cannot be obstructed, nor have you any connection with material contamination. Indeed, you are the indestructible nectar of immortality. By the grace of his spiritual master, a jnani can mix bhakti with his jnana. He will then be able to see you as the soul of all souls. He will be able to see you as the super soul of his own self. This vision will allow him to cross the ocean of material existence. For one who has thus realized you, the illusory energy at once subsides, for he is free of the false vision of perceiving anything as separate from you. Seeing you with this vision of knowledge, and remaining in knowledge of you, devoid of the false perceptions that are the cause of the existence of the material world, his ignorance and illusion cease. Therefore, through knowledge of you and knowledge of himself as your eternal servant, neither liberation nor bondage have meaning for him, just as day and night have no meaning for one present on the sun planet. How foolish are the Jnanis! How foolish are the Mayavadis! They are fools because they consider your form as a manifestation of illusion. How foolish are the conditioned souls! Regardless of how intelligent they think themselves as being, they all perceive themselves as their bodies, and they thus fail to see their self as part of you. They're all fools because they reject you, and in so doing, they search for the Supreme Soul outside of your Supreme Personality. How foolish are all of these so-called learned men. O unlimited Lord, the saintly devotees who have added bhakti to their jnana seek you out within their own bodies by rejecting everything separate from you. Indeed, how can discriminating persons appreciate the real nature of a rope lying before them until they refute the illusion that it is a snake? My Lord, if one is favored by even a slight trace of the mercy of your lotus feet, he can understand the greatness of your personality. But those who speculate to understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead are unable to know you, even though they continue to study the Vedas for many years.
That's a little summary of a nice section of Brahma's prayers, which is the topic that I'll be discussing each evening while visiting here in Naperville. Fantastic chapter. We'll go into some of the details as we go forward. So there's quite an assembly here of your friends, and this is my understanding is many of you are involved in assisting the Naperville project to go forward with fundraising and making it happen. So my gratitude goes to all of you. I'll say a couple words about once upon a time. Once upon a time, there were a few families out here in Naperville. And the Jairam family and the Menon family, and they had children. So I came with one devotee from the Chicago temple on a regular basis. I don't remember exactly. Premananda probably remembers better than I do. I think it was like every Friday. And the person who was the driver was really good with children. So he went downstairs with the children. And I was upstairs with, the adults, just a few families. And the kids had so much fun that our class was over before their class was over. And they would come up like, really joyful. And that's how things began. And there was interest. And then the number of families started to spread, and there's nice history. Premananda and her family moved from Grays Lake to Naperville, and she just repeated what she was doing in Grays Lake in her home. She gave class to the kids. Now some of those kids are giving class to kids. Without details. And then slowly. It's just like, it seems to me, I'm some of you are senior citizens, but I may have all of you beat in the number of years of worldly age, plus my practice in Krishna consciousness has been around 54 years of just being dedicated in service to Krishna. So it seems, with those years of experience in devotional service, seems to me that Krishna wanted this to happen. Even before we were ready, things started to happen. And then more things started to happen and more things. Just like this property. We weren't, this is a long story. But, it just kind of appeared in the market. Somebody, a devotee, realtor, found out about the current property before it even hit the market. And they came out for a gathering. I looked at the property and said, before the end of the day, make an offer. It was a Sunday, because it's going to go in the market. So they talked, and they made an offer, and the offer went back just once and twice, went back and bought the property. We weren't looking, just, and so forth. And here you all are, assembled to help make, again, my picture of what's going on is Krishna wanted it. And so it's, we all have a role to play in helping Krishna with what Krishna wants to happen. And, phase 1 is well underway, and the temple opening and all of that, and then phase 2, and we'll have different celebration, this one and that one and the other one. It's really, it's very close to what is being realized by Brahma. Behind everything is Krishna. It's all connected to Krishna. He doesn't see anything separate from Krishna. And this manifesting of this temple, as far as I can see, it's just Krishna is behind it. And we get some small part to play.
Can you tell something about yourself, because we are not aware of?
Myself?
Yes.
Right from the beginning.
It is short.
I can do a short one. I can. Once upon a time. It seems like a few lifetimes ago, I was in college. And this way, but an arrangement was made where I started asking questions. My thing was this. There's a higher reality. That's one. I know that there's a higher reality. 2, I know that I don't know. And the third is I want to know. And that was the starting point. So I started looking around. And one thing after the next thing started to happen. I mean, a college professor, I had a friendship with him outside the classroom, philosophy professor. With many things. And he one day, he was writing poetry, and he would read his poetry, and he gave me a book, and I thought it was a poetry book. But it was Bhagavad Gita. I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a poetry book. So fast forward, another person said, "Oh, I've got one of those, but it's different." So he gave me his. So now I have these 2 Bhagavad Gitas, and I thought maybe there's more. So I went to the library, and I found 5 more versions of Bhagavad Gita. So I checked them all out of the library. I read all 7, and I came to 2 conclusions. It's not a book of poetry, and the second was I don't understand it. Some time passed, some other doors opened, and a devotee gave me a Bhagavad Gita as it is. I read it, version number 8, and it was really easy to understand. I was puzzled. Why is it really easy to understand, and the other ones I couldn't understand? But I kept reading it because it was nice. And I wanted to know. And then it became clear just from reading it. This is coming from realization. And the others were coming from scholarship. Exactly this. Jnane prayasa udapasya. Namanta eva. There are scholars that had their flashlight out looking for where's the sun. That's not how you find the sun. The sun discloses itself. And the sun discloses itself, that Krishna discloses himself through his devotees. So somehow good fortune came my way and I met some devotees. And then, the doors, I just kept asking. And the doors appeared where there wasn't a door before. And then the door opened, I went through on the other side, and I found this whole other, so it just, things started, so it wasn't like fast. It wasn't impulsive and, running after something. And I thought, gee, there's some details which not I had a realization that my life has changed, transcendentally changed by his kindness. He risked his life, literally, to cross the sea with 2 heart attacks, to come to a place where he doesn't know anybody, and to give Krishna. And I was one of the recipients. He visited the university that I was attending. And my life changed in his Bhagavad Gita and the chanting. And I felt indebted. I felt a very strong, and still do, sense of gratitude. So I can't just take and not give. So what can I do to give? I'm this little guy. Little tiny thing. But he wanted little guys like me to come together in centers and collectively do something more than a little guy can do alone. I had the realization, so I said, let me help him. So I moved into the Boston Temple because that's one of the places I was looking for graduate schools, is in Boston, lots of good schools in Boston. And when I was there, I visited the temple. And the temple was out of sight. So I took a leave of absence from school and jumped in the pool. See, what's it like in there? And how can I be of assistance? And there was no looking back. I remember at about 3.5 years after having lived a life of dedicated devotion as a young brahmachari, headed for a medical profession, but I took a leave of absence, and so I thought, okay, now I know what the pool is like. So what do I want to do? I can go back to school and continue, It was very conscious deliberation. No one was, in my ear about it. I just was thinking. I thought, there are lots of doctors, and there are not too many people doing what I'm doing. And there's lots of freedom doing what I'm doing, and I probably will meet some people that I can help them become Krishna conscious. So, it was it. That was the only, if there was any pause, it was like, because, that one. But, for 50-something years, it's been a blast. Being, an instrument to assist our founder Acharya to go out of the way to find people like I was as a college kid, and other stages of life also. I think I want to share something about my involvement in China, because that's a topic I wanted to spend a little bit of time with. During one year, I was the chairman of the GBC. You all know what GBC stands for? Governing Body Commission. Prabhupada took the name, as far as I understand it, from the Indian Railroad. It's with the people in charge of the Indian Railroad is the Governing Body Commission. So he borrowed the terminology from them, as far as I understand. So the ultimate managing authority in ISKCON is the GBC, and I was GBC for a number of years. And then I became the chairman of the GBC. And unfortunately, there wasn't a job description that went with being a chairman. I just okay, good luck. So I thought, chairman. So I literally went to a globe and looked at what's important in the world, because this is not just a temple, and I was president of a temple, or GBC, they're overseeing a zone. This is the world. So I got a globe out, what's important in the world? And China. It's really important. And at that particular time, the GBC for China was blacklisted. It couldn't enter China because there was things going on with the government at that time. But, I wasn't blacklisted, so I went as the chairman of the GBC, basically just to tell them, you know what, you people are really important. Your country's important, and your devotion is important, and you're important. And that's what I just went for that purpose. So they would feel, hey, the chairman of the GBC is giving us attention, telling us we're important. People. The Chinese culture and Vedic culture they're so similar. And those differences, obviously. The theism and atheism are big differences. And the receptivity of the people was fantastic. So since then, that was 2010, I've been visiting, except for the pandemic. And I want to share with you, what's going on. There's lots of things going on with the government, but the government doesn't like religion. And there's a good reason. Because if people have allegiance to religion, they may have less allegiance for the government. So it's a competitor for the allegiance of their followers. So they tighten the screws. This chairman of the Communist Party has a very big screwdriver. Recently, within the past 6 months, they passed a 9-page, very detailed no-nos, prohibitions for religious organizations specific to the use of the internet to propagate. Very specific. Doesn't say what the penalties are, but they showed their teeth. And it's supposed to begin March 2. And everyone's like, so it's tough being in China. Now, how do you get Krishna consciousness into China when the government's like that? So one of the things the government is pushing is Chinese characteristics. And that can mean a lot of different things. In Hong Kong, it specifically means no foreign influence. But in mainland China, it has a slightly different, it means, the values taught by Confucius and Lao Tzu and all of their wonderful people that taught the values that if you didn't see the label at the bottom, you'd think, well, that's Vedic, or the people that hear the Vedic, they say, well, that's our Chinese culture. So that's the matchup. So I, being wanting to be an instrument of our founder Acharya and recognizing the importance of China in the world today and growing and growing and growing in the world tomorrow, how to get Krishna in there. So I have some ideas, and I plan to, Krishna permitting, to move with some of them. Here's one of them. Was your degree at Oxford? Okay. So some professors from Oxford, or those connected with Oxford University, together with 2 or 3 other ISKCON persons, came up with, take the ivory tower picture of Bhagavad Gita and bring it down so the world can understand it. And they came up with 6 Gita values. You're familiar? So I've taught Gita values. And then a little light went on. It goes like this. Because the values of Gita and the values of Chinese culture are so similar, minus, of course, Krishna, and minus, of course, the soul. You're not the body, but the values. So the values in Gita rest upon the soul and Krishna. But then when they hear the value, they go, wow. So we're planning, it's in the works. And I reached out to Braja Bihari, asked him to consult with Shonaka and see if he has some recommendations for me. But a 5-part presentation, starting with the devotee community, so they can reach out to the Chinese people, the Chinese devotees, and the Chinese not yet devotees, to understand here's the Gita values, and here's how to connect with Chinese characteristics. When people hear my experiences, and others I've consulted, when they hear, oh, that's in Bhagavad Gita, that's in our Chinese culture, tell me more. You hit a button, and the button arouses enthusiasm to hear Krishna's words in Bhagavad Gita. And then out of the box comes Krishna. But it has to come out gently because the government's watching. With the public, at least. The devotees have no problem. But there's this, transitioning between. So, 5 parts. 1, someone reads that paragraph in Chinese. Each of the 6 has a little, very carefully crafted, refined paragraph. 2, some ladies, so there's a female voice in the presentation, they refer to someone from Chinese history or a saying or a poem or something that's well known by everybody that expresses this value from the Chinese perspective. 3, there's a devotee, Yasoda Kumar, who is very accomplished, very learned, very, he has a deep sounding voice, and he sounds like, a PR man or a broadcaster type person, but he's very deep and knowledgeable. So he's going to explain that value further as far as Chinese culture is concerned. Part 4, I'm going to say, here's Gita values, with images like this and helping people get a picture in their mind, and then discussion. And we're going to do that so that the devotees can get a sense of, the Chinese devotees, how to relate to other people and help them connect with Bhagavad Gita that resonates with Chinese culture, and then people go, oh, I want to hear more about that. And then the next is to go to some other audiences, explicitly non-devotee audiences, through Zoom, and do the same thing through scholars and professors. And there's a wave in China today. Maybe I'm talking too much. There's a wave in amongst educated people in China. I have come to know from direct interaction with those that are interacting with them. They want to know the connection between ancient Chinese culture and ancient Indian culture, and it's huge. So gather those people together and do the same thing again. And Krishna comes out of the box. Because that's not in Chinese culture. But the value is there. It's an atheistic value, or an agnostic value, but it's resting upon Krishna. So, that's one strategy. There's a few others, but I'll mention one more. And I brought with me believe it or not, no, wait, just believe it or not, Krishna is very kind. There's a very creative devotee who got permission from the Chinese government, or a publisher that they contacted has given permission for publishing Ramayana. And they gave, after that, they gave an ISBN. That's like, the relationship between India and China today, the publisher was shocked. He said, I'll give it a try. And he was shocked that they agreed. And he was shocked that they gave the ISBN. Now they've taken the literal translation, it's Bhakti Swami's version, because earlier they translated Krishna Dharma's Ramayana, and for something like 19 months, there's no response from the government. They're not saying no, but they're not saying yes. They're not saying anything. And this one got approved, and it's in the works. So this same very creative devotee, I said, hey, but what about this? You know, Hanuman. And you know what? Hanuman is in Chinese culture. They don't know him as Hanuman. They have a Chinese name for him. And so I've heard this from many of the devotees. There are 3 books that everybody that grows up in China and goes to school, which is everybody, mandatory education, there's 3 books they read, and one of them has Hanuman in the book. It's a story of a Buddhist monk named Xuanzang, lived way over here in the eastern part of China, and he went overland. It took, he risked his life to get to the birthplace of Buddha to study, like, what's the real thing? Because he heard so many versions. So what's the real thing? So he went and learned Sanskrit, studied under over 100-year-old. So it's a very wonderful history. He kept very careful notes of all the places he visited because people didn't keep them. He was a scholarly type person. So journey west. 1,000 years later, it was rewritten by a modern guy who included Hanuman in the beginning part of the story. He called him the Sun King, or Monkey King, or whatever it is in Chinese. And everybody knows him. So along with this publication, this is, it took about 6 months. But the person who authored this didn't know, and he finally, because I was, encouraging him, he owns the international copyrights. It was published by Penguin, which is a big printing company, in America. But they don't own the international rights. And the author, is a devotee, Yogeshwar Prabhu. So Yogeshwar Prabhu said, no problem. Have your publisher send me, because the publisher can't publish this without approval from the owner of the copyright. So he's going to give it's in the works. And then the young lady that, got the Ramayana approved has an idea that in addition to, this book in Chinese for kids, is some additional notes of how Hanuman is already in Chinese culture, known by this, and Chinese scholars saying how he got there in Chinese culture, how it came through Ramayana, how the culture between China, exchanges between culture of intellectuals, and then within the culture in general, how Ramayana entered into China, and it got, Chinese characteristics instead. But, they're going to get the Vedic, and they're going to get what they already know, and see how they mash up. Oh, this is very interesting. And in comes Hanuman into China. And with Hanuman, of course, comes Ram. And they're going to get Hanuman and Ramayana. And then devotees that know about Hanuman and Ramayana from when they really want to know. Just like, when I was a college kid and I want to know. There's a reality beyond Confucius. There's a reality behind, ethical principles to live by, which is largely what Confucius' teachings are, without God. There's a reality higher than that. So how to get that into China? So this is one of the instruments. And promoting it, and whatever goes in along with the very colorful illustrations and a very simple storyline. The background, and then the Ramayana, and then devotees becoming proficient in Ramayana. Anyway, it's a door that wasn't open before, and so we're walking through that door.
When you approach, you said you went to China. When you approach, what sect of the public or the scholars do you approach in the beginning, starting?
When I just was meeting with the devotees. I didn't go outside. Well, excuse me. The way to introduce Krishna consciousness that I personally experienced was in yoga studios. Yoga is very popular. The government approves it, and there's yoga studios. So we would contact, I wouldn't, the local people would contact a yoga studio. Hey, how'd you like to have some music? Kirtan. And how'd you like to have an introduction to the meditation aspect of yoga? Mantra meditation. So that was the foot in the door. And then with mantra meditation comes everything else. Meditation on what? And then, Gita's message, and, simple. And then once they show some interest, here's our book table. And then, books. And here's our beads, and here's bhakti. And here's you can join our little reading group, and, they don't have to. They can just go back to their yoga. But if there are people that have very significant spiritual interest, there's just no contact. So you make the contact. Here's an example. Just happened 3 days ago. There's a lady, a devotee, who before she was a devotee, she was a professional singer. And her voice is very angelic. Tungavidya. She lives in Beijing. And I just got 3 letters from 3 ladies that she goes to going to yoga studios without, somebody coming with her. And she just sings. And she melts their heart, sings Hare Krishna mantra. And so nicely, celestial voice. And then she does, really simple. I don't know what her talks are, but something simple. Bhagavad Gita, 101. Made really simplified. And then they become attracted. And then they start reading Prabhupada's books in Chinese. They start coming to little gatherings. They can't have temples, but they have, there's backdoor ways of doing things. So that's that. Yoga studios. But sometimes, no, I haven't been there since they started, the COVID thing happened. But sometimes they would have gatherings at lounges in motels or hotels in cities, and with the right relationships, they would look the other way, just because we were paying the fee to have the room, and we do the same thing with a whole big gathering of people. And their hearts are soft. I'd like to share some things, but maybe another time. Their hearts are very soft. I'll say one thing. At least 35 times, I was trying to count, at least 35, the ones I can remember. First time anybody's had any contact with the Hare Krishna mantra. And someone singing over here, there's this devotee couple, they're really nice singer and musicians, etc. The wife plays mridanga like she's a man. She's like really good. And he sings and plays harmonium. And that's how we start, kirtan. So right after the kirtan, 35 times, hand goes up. What happened? When while the singing was going on, I felt something in my heart moving. I started crying. My whole body was trembling. I've felt emotions I've never felt in my life before. What was that? Their hearts are soft. It's like the example of a spark falling on dry leaves, and it starts a fire. They're deprived, but not averse. There are some people averse in the world, but they respond. Very amazing. I haven't had that happen anywhere in the West. Many times in China. I mean, it doesn't say China people are better or something. It's just there's a special, when deprived, they get something that's genuine. It's very moving. There's always challenges, but...
So, what are the logistics involved to promote these kind of books like the Bhagavad Gita and Hanuman, related to Hanuman in China? I mean, like, I know that it's ISBN number is there. So, is there any other mode we can do it remotely other than that?
Well, yes. The way that it works in China is the publisher requires the person who wants a book published to pay in advance. So I don't know what this is going to cost, but it's going to be some cost. And I made a commitment to this nice, very creative devotee. She found somebody who was going to pay for the Ramayana publication, and when it's as the books sell, that person will be reimbursed. So the seed money will go back to the person who put it out, but their life doesn't permit them to do this one too. So I said, I'll find people that want to make this happen.
Yes, we will help.
Okay, well, thank you. Because I'm sure there are people that want to see it happen. Because remotely, Krishna's given something, let me use that something in Krishna's service. Brahma's using his intellect, and someone has some wealth, they can use their wealth, and this creative lady, she's at risk. I mean, if the government wants to chew her up and spit her out, they can chew her up and spit her out. But she's very creative and very bold and very confident. It's amazing. It doesn't happen. I mean, the BBT tried to get a Ramayana approved, and they couldn't get it approved. She got it approved. Little girl. I mean, girl, lady. And now this. So it's funding. And I don't know what the number is, because there's color separations. This was 13 years ago, something like that. So the technology to create this artwork is gone. The original artwork is gone. They're going to have to take some way and figure out how to, take the images from this publication and make it publishable. It has to be high enough resolution that it looks right. There's some how it's going to happen, but it'll happen. They have to do whatever they have to do, photoshopping and whatever they have to do. And so then there's how many, and there's some other articles. I have some articles. Premananda has printed them out, and she can forward them to whoever is interested to see. Scholars in China have detailed how Hanuman is in Chinese culture. They have different ideas of how he got there. they have different ideas of how that the period of time in Chinese history when Ramayana entered into China, and then people took from Ramayana and made something Chinese of it, the Chinese characteristics of Ramayana, which is, what Hanuman, the story of the Sun King or the Monkey King that has a Chinese name. So that's going to be in this. It's very carefully researched. There's a little team. So how many pages it's going to be, how many copies, the color work, I don't know what the number is. And usually if somebody says it's between this and that, it's going to be more than whatever between this and that is. It always works that way. It's like the temple. You have to ask the contractor and they give you a bid, and it's always going to be more than that. And even when there's, anyway, construction is another story. Materials and costs of things. So I don't know the number. I'll try to get a guess. I thought, anyway, depends on the number of pages and then how many copies are in the first print run. And the more that there is, then the more copies, and the less they'll cost per copy. And so I don't know how to do it. I'm not in the publishing field. Yogeshwara, who's the author of this, he can probably help me. I'd like to have a number, but I don't have one. But so it's just helping finance the thing. It was my birthday. No, it wasn't my birthday. I was, our host wanted to give me something. And I said, I don't need something. What about jacket? I told Premananda, I'm staying in Detroit. They gave me a jacket. It's in the bag in the closet. And when I leave, it's going to stay in the bag in the closet. I don't need a jacket. So if she wants to help, help bring Hanuman into China. Okay. And you can do it remotely. You don't have to get on an international flight and get a visa and go through all the rigmarole when you go into the country. Okay. And then this lady she's creative. She has ideas of marketing and get it around. And then speak about it. Travel around to speak about it. People will come to know, oh, she's really good. She has a professor who volunteered, I'll translate the book from English to Chinese. I want to be part of your team. A professor. A well-known professor. So, that's how. You have something?
I just wanted to pass on comment that it is very interesting, and it is very Krishna's plan. She's extremely hardcore Hanuman's devotee.
Yeah.
And on this place, how many times she has had Sundarkand and she has Hanuman Jap, and innumerable amount of time. This is exactly in the same place it has happened. And today she has the opportunity to honor that book to be published in China. So this is not, this doesn't happen by accident. This happens by
Krishna's arrangement. I mean, here we go. I was thinking to share with you privately, but I'll say it now publicly. One of the devotees in Chicago has been giving, I think it's Saturday morning classes in Ramayana, and he just started Kishkinda Kanda. And he told me yesterday he's going to go very slowly. He wants to cover each verse because it's that section where Hanuman is meeting Ram for the first time. And he's a lover of Ramayana, and he's a very good speaker, and his heart is into it so much. Does anybody here attend his Saturday class? If you're interested, you can connect them. find out from Premananda how to connect with his class. Check it out, and you'll see how he's glowing. And I don't know if your time permits, but he's a vibrating personality. Nityananda Pran. So, here we are. Hanuman's arrangement. Here we go. Into China. And it's not going to. This is just this is the point of a needle. There's the whole shaft of the needle and the head of the needle, and there's a thread, and there's. Yeah.
Like Ramji's bow and arrow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Straight in China.
Yeah. Yeah. That scene when he's on the top of Mahendra Mountain and he's preparing to jump. That's the scene. You know the scene.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't?
I have not read that part.
Oh.
Just read Sundarkand all the time.
Well, it's the beginning part of Sundarakanda. He's on Mahendra Mountain getting ready to jump. I'll read it. It's way down. All the commentaries, Govindaraj and his commentary on Ramayana goes into detail what the other acharyas have said. It's indicating the guru who's preparing to act on behalf of the Lord, Ram. He's got a mission. He's been empowered. Here's my ring. I trust you will be successful. He's empowered, and he's preparing himself. And then, shh. It's really wonderful. That's where we are. He's on top of Mahendra Mountain right now. It's exciting. It's how to, it's Ramayana in today's world. In Lanka and China, I don't know, there might be some comparisons. Okay. Any discussion on Brahma Vimohan Leela or
Maharaj, did they publish the Gita also? Did the Chinese government publish Prabhupada Gita at a certain point?
the Chinese government doesn't publish, but they approved that it get published. And then the recent government withdraw. They control things very well. But so, I don't know if I want to say this publicly. There's a way that, little by little, they get publishers to publish small quantities, and then another publisher is under the radar. So they did it. They had a book distribution marathon, and so many Gitas were distributed. And the version that is being printed and just circulated, the government at one time approved. They're presently in the process, with some degree of confidence, of getting the final. The government signed a contract with the BBT to publish the first 9 cantos and the first part of 10th canto. They're reasonably confident, and it's taking time to get government permission to publish the rest. That's printed by government publishing house. So we buy from them, the BBT buys from them, and BBT then distributes to the devotees. But sets of Bhagavatam are also being sold in mainland China today. It's it's a little bit like Cops and Robbers or Cat and Mouse or something. It's tricky, but it's going on. And this can come right out of the box because Hanuman's in Chinese culture. Compliments of what people did so many centuries ago. Okay, so what do we do next? Premananda? Shyam?
So thank you, Maharaj, for coming. Again, Neelam Dubedi ji, she is our chairperson. With love, we always call Neelam Di, so I was having tough time to get her name. And again, the temple journey, I mean, you are aware of, we keep updating you, but it is absolutely incredible. I mean, since he took our chairperson position, and she's a builder by profession, and that building has gone up and up. We even didn't want a third floor, and third floor got added. So much is happening, and there are a lot of other committee members. We have Praveen ji, and he is the first one, basically. Very much started with him when we had nothing, and he inspired us to build a nicer temple. We have Dr. Ajay Gopalka. Where is Dr.? Oh, he's on call. We have Grees Kapoorji here. So, yeah, these are some of our committee members here. But Neelam Di is doing fantastic job. I will let Neelam Di speak a little bit.
Thank you, Maharaji, for gracing our home and blessing us. I should really thank Shyam. He got me involved with ISKCON. I did not know anything about it and Praveen. He's the one who got me into that along with him. And I mean, it has been an incredible journey, like you said. Anything that you get involved and you want it getting built, it just is, I just don't have any words at the moment right now. It's just very inspirational to see something that we are going to be leaving behind for generations to come.
Yes.
That's what my main thing is. It's not us, it's not any of us, it's the children of our children who will be enjoying all this and keeping the cultural, the spiritual part of our culture alive. So that's the main thing that temple is going to give at the moment. So, Praveen, I would like for you to speak.
I don't think this is a speech-making opportunity. Thank you, Maharaji, for coming and blessing us with such a knowledgeable and pious and heartfelt beliefs and conviction, and more importantly, at least where children are concerned, to kind of show that with passion you can go where the natural inclination would be to just recoil and not reach there. And China is a great example where what everyone knows, and you go against the grain because you have the passion. And I think that's the kind of thing that whether we spell it out or not, children will know it, and they will learn it from examples more than any preaching. So what we're doing for the temple is really what we are helping ourselves, and Krishna is enabling all of that. It's just none of us are doing anything, and it's all coming from him. We are giving what he has given us.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
That's all we are doing, and I firmly believe in it. So I think all good, it's for the community, and we are benefiting from it every day. But thank you very much for coming and enlightening us with your experiences. Thanks very much.
Kirtan? Yeah, we can do few minutes. Is it okay? Can we do it? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Sure. Okay.
Neelam Di?
Krishna, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, everyone, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, all together, together. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Louder, louder. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Rama. Jaya Radha Madhava Radhe. Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe. Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Shri Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Nitai Gora Haribol. Gora Nitai Gora Haribol, 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 Nitai Gora Haribol. Nitai Gora Premanande, Hari Hari Bol. Harinam Sankirtan Yagya ki, Shri Shri Radha Madhava Radha Shama Sundar ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki. Hare Krishna.